Right, so this is the control panel for the main energy centre. This is responsible for powering and controlling the boilers and the pumps in the energy centre. It's very simple setup. It's 2 boilers that are duty sharing, and there's a couple of primary pumps that pump the primary circuit out to the district heating plant rooms, where they individually have their own heat exchangers for the hot water and their variable temperature circuit for the local heating for the radiators. So as far as it goes with this panel, there's not too much plant fed from here, and it's a very simple system. So I'm going to run you through the basic overview of the panel, and then what I'll do is I'll explain to you a bit more about the intelligence side and the control side, which is accessible via the display panel. So first of all, these are the conventional panel labels. They're standard on all of our control panels, and the first label here is the panel status. It's probably one of the most important labels, because the first light you see, the white LED there, is the control circuit live lamp. If that lamp is out, or it's not lit, then the chances are you're not going to have a control circuit, which potentially means you're not going to have any plant running, because the whole panel works off of a 24-volt control circuit, and that just indicates whether that's healthy or not. But just below that is a lamp test facility. So if you push the lamp test facility, you can test the lamps. They're all LEDs, so they should all have 10,000 hours of life in them, and relatively cheap to replace as well. So they're very efficient, very good solution as opposed to the old incandescent light bulbs. But you can test the lamp facility. You can build that into your PPM daily, monthly, whatever, to make sure that it isn't just the lamp. Okay. Now, if the control circuit lamp is live and lit, then you've got a couple of other safety circuits, hardwired safety circuits here that are monitored. One is the gas detection unit. So there's a small grey gas detection unit up at high level that sniffs the gas at high level. So the idea of that is if there's a gas leak in the plant room, then we shut the plant down. The second interlock is the fire alarm system. Now, although this isn't interlocked on this site, the facility's there. We build it in as standard, and it goes into terminals 301 and 302 in our terminals. It's the first 2 terminals, and at the moment that'll have a link in it, but the facility's there for the future provision. Should any of those rupture, along with the knock-off button, there's a knock-off button by the door, a little yellow and red push button. That coupled with 2 thermal links above the boilers. There's little grey boxes above the boilers that got like a little lead link in them, and if that is essentially one circuit, and if that ruptures, then what you're going to find is it will shut the plant down. It will shut the gas solenoid. So all of those 3 circuits, fire, gas, or emergency knockoff, or heat link, then rupture of any of those circuits will shut your gas solenoid, and it will fail your gas safety circuit. So that brings on to the next label, which is the status of your gas solenoid. Gas solenoid valve is that big valve on the yellow pipework over there, and that enables the gas to the boiler room. So without that, you're going to have no heating, and if rupture of any of these circuits will cause that to close. Obviously, if you have a power failure as well, that will close down. But any of those safety circuits I mentioned will close that solenoid, and what you'll get is a gas safety circuit failed light and a gas valve closed light. Now, the reason there's 2 lights is because once you've rectified the problem, so say you reset the knock-off button or replace the thermal link, or the fire alarm's healthy now, this light will go out to let you know that the fault's no longer there and the safety circuit's healthy, but the valve won't open again until you manually come and press that button to reset that button, and that'll open. You'll hear the clonk on the solenoid, and that'll open the valve. So those are the life safety systems. They're the circuits that are what we call life safety. And then other hardwired interlocks is the pressurization unit. There's a tiny little microfill pressurization unit up on the wall over there, to the side of the boilers, little blue unit, and that monitors the pressure in the system. It's a self-regulating device. It will inject more pressure into your system if need be from the mains, or if the system's over pressure, it will take some of that pressure out into the vessel, which acts like a big balloon, and it will take the pressure out of the system and keep it at a healthy level. So the reason we monitor that for is if you've got a low pressure, say you've got a leak or a radiator come off the wall somewhere, or you've got a leak on a pump and there's constant loss of pressure, then we don't want to run the pumps to fuel the leak. So we monitor that, we hardwire, shut down the pumps if we detect a low pressure on that, and we also shut off the boilers because we don't want the boilers being able to run without water in the system. So it's a safety circuit for the LTHW circuit, and we monitor that only, okay? We don't have any effect on controlling that. It's got all its own little pressure switches. We just monitor it, and if there's a low pressure alarm, we stop the plant. Now you might come in and you find that it's momentarily gone into high pressure or low pressure, and that will happen. That's the nature of them. They're, like I say, regulating the pressure and maintaining a healthy pressure in the system, and momentarily you might see the plant shut down for 60 seconds and it'll automatically start back up once it's healthy again. Alright, so another safety circuit that's built into this system is the boiler flue fan. The boiler flue fan should always run the whole time there's a heating demand available. So if the boiler flue fan isn't running, then the chances are your heating plant won't be running. We do not allow the boilers to fire if flow isn't established across the flue fan as a safety interlock. So the boiler flue fan always has to be running. If you've got no heating and that's not running, chances are you won't have any heat. So flue fan always runs. Once all this is healthy, that's when we go on to the heating and the sequencing of the boilers. So you've got a set of duty standby pumps, twin set of pumps, the big pumps over in the back there. They're the primary heating pumps. They distribute the hot water from the boiler circuit, from the primary circuit, out to your district heating plant rooms. And then from there, like I say, there's a heat exchanger that serves the hot water. There's 4 district heating plant rooms, which will go round. Heat exchanger, standalone heat exchanger that does the hot water, and then there's a 3-port valve that modulates to do the heating. The boilers will only fire when flow is established across the primary heating pumps. Okay, so the heating pumps change over automatically on a weekly basis. Every Monday morning they'll change duty. So once the duty pump is enabled, this control panel will monitor the flow across the pump, and if flow isn't established in 60 seconds, it will automatically change over to the standby pump and it will fail the lead pump. Once the flow is established across the pumps, then we can start sequencing the boilers. Again, they share duty, so every Monday morning they'll change duty, but the difference with the boilers is if there's a big heat demand, they load share as well. So if Monday morning boiler 1 is the lead, and that's running as the lead, and it can't cope with the load, it may bring boiler 2 in just to top up the load. So you may come in and find on very cold starts, you know, not that you're likely to find that here because it's 24/7, but maybe when we go from the summer coming into the winter and the heating plant's coming on again, you might find that both boilers are running. There's 3 stages of frost protection. So there's an outside air frost protection. If it drops below 0 outside, we just run the pumps, just to, if the plant isn't running, that is. Likeliness is it will probably be running by that time anyway, but should the plant not be required at all, go below 0 outside, run the pumps to circulate the water. The second stage of frost protection is the immersion sensors. So we're monitoring various temperature sensors in the system, and if that drops below 12, then we run the pumps again just to circulate. We don't want the pipework freezing. And then the third stage of fabric frost protection is if that continues to deteriorate and drops below 5 degrees, then we'll bring on the boilers just to raise the temperature. So that will just stop your pipeworks freezing. And if you ever come in when you think the plant shouldn't be running and it is, and it's cold, likeliness is it's frost protection. Plant runs 24/7, or it's allowed to run 24/7 here because it's a residential site. There's an outside air hold off of 19 degrees, so it goes 19 above outside, automatically shuts the heating plant down anyway, so you haven't got to worry about coming in, turning it off and on in the summer. So that's about it on the panel overview. Door interlocked isolator. If you're going inside the panel, you should be qualified or at least know what you're doing or what you're looking at. It's an overrideable interlocking isolator. There's a little button underneath that will allow you to open the door while the panel's still live. Again, you should only be going in if you're a competent electrician or you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, then our number's up there if you want to give us a call. All the lights on the door, the green light typically means run or enabled, so it's either being asked to run or it is running. And the red lights are faults or trips. So if you see a red light on one of the pumps or the boilers, it's either a lockout or an electrical trip, which would mean you'd have to go inside the panel and reset that. So this is inside the control panel. What you see is conventional breakers like you see in your house. They're the power supplies to each of the items of plant. So if you refer to our drawing or our wiring schematic, you'll see what they're all labelled up, okay, on dedicated track labelling, so you'll be able to refer to our wiring schematics to know what breakers what. This is the brains. This is the controller that does all the intelligent control of the plant, the changeover of the pumps, the staging of the boilers, monitoring the temperatures, and it's a Trend IQ4, state-of-the-art, brand new controller, and it's web-based, which means you can literally access this from the web. There's a web page built into that will give you all of the display settings that are on the display on the door via a web page. So if your team was to allow an Ethernet socket in here, for instance, and grant you access to the web, then you'll be able to access these immediately. There's no other works required from us. You just type the IP address into the web browser and you can access the controller. The fire alarm relay here, obviously overridden because the facility isn't here, but those are the two terminals, 301 and 302. If you want to connect the fire alarm in at a later date, normally closed contact you'd need. Relay 3A needs to be energized all the time, and if you ever connect that in, the process is as follows. Bell the cables out to make sure it's normally closed, connect to the terminals, make sure that the relay goes red, as in energized, and then you can flick that bridge down, that little tag down on relay 3A, and it'll all be ready to go. So that's really the panel overview. I'll go into a bit more detail on the display, but we're going to change the camera view for that. So this is the display. It's called an IQ View 8. It's based on like a TomTom style touchscreen device, pretty easy to navigate around. The home screen always shows our company details, so if you ever need to call us or email us, our details are at the bottom there. And obviously there's a big button that says push to start. Now, because this system is so simple and it's not very complex, it's not a site-wide BMS or anything like that, you probably won't use much of this. The only two things you're going to ever want to look at are controls browser and operating times. The reason you won't look at much else is because we're not going to be setting up users because this boiler room is going to be locked, and chances are you're going to know who's in here at any one time. If later down the line you've got several engineers coming in and all want different passwords, and that can be set up by following the user manual in our O&M. So it will tell you how to set users up on this in our O&M manual. Schematics, that's if you have a site-wide BMS and you want animations and all fancy graphics. That obviously wasn't applicable to here. And the graphs you might need, but you can access the graphs via the temperature sensors, which I'll show you in a minute. So this is the main screen. When you touch the screen, you'll be presented with this. It looks like a TomTom. It's got all the different menus, and the only two you'll be looking at are operating times and controls browser. So if I go to the operating times first, what you're going to see is the controllers on the LAN. We've only got one, is the boiler room, so you click that and that will present you with the time zone inside the controller. When you click on the time zone, you'll be presented with a time schedule. And the time schedule, this is where you set all the different times. Now, this application's residential. It's a big, massive district heating energy centre that serves a load of residential flats. So chances are you want this left on 24/7. It doesn't mean that the plant will run in the summer. We've got outside air hold-offs, as I explained earlier, but you probably want this on 24 hours a day, so it's available to run 24 hours a day. Like I say, it doesn't mean it's going to run in the summer, but it's best to have it available should you get to September, say, and we have the freezing cold mornings and warm days. So 24 hours a day, you probably won't ever need to change this, but if you ever do, you just click on the day. You can have up to 3 on-off days per day, on-off times per day. you just go over to the time schedule and you get the option to change the times for every Wednesday or just this day. If you change just this day, it'll go back to the everyday settings the following week. But if you change every Wednesday, that's going to change the times for every Wednesday. So what you do is you just click on the button that says every Wednesday, click on the time schedule you want to change. You can plus or minus 1 hour or 10 minutes, or plus or minus 1 hour or 10 minutes on the stop time. Click OK, and that'll change the time schedule in there. Okay, so that's the times. If you go to controls browser, this is where you're going to see the sensors, the temperature readings, and be able to change the set points. We're advised that you don't, because it's been fully, set up to maintain a return temperature based on the design. So you should never need to change these settings. And likewise, the frost settings that you'll find in there as well are all conventional frost settings I explained earlier. They shouldn't need changing. So again, you go into controls browser, you go to the boiler panel. You're going to see all the temperature sensors. So you've got outside air temperature, boiler flow, boiler return, secondary flow, secondary return, and you can monitor all the temperatures from here. Even monitor the boiler room space temperature and CO2. You just scroll up and down to see the different sensors there. And this little graph button here will present a graph of the temperature. So if we click that graph button, it takes about 2 seconds and it'll produce a graph which is dynamic. You can actually zoom in to sections of this graph just by clicking and dragging across the graph. So if you ever have a problem, you can really zoom in and find out where the problem happened or when you lost the temperature. So that's how you graph a sensor. Those are the sensors, and if you scroll down, you're going to see adjustment knobs. Now these are the knobs that I was talking about: frost settings, pump overrun, and also the boiler set point, which is currently 80 degrees. So that's the set points. We don't really recommend you change them. You shouldn't never need to change them. Although the boiler set point's 80, it doesn't mean it's always going to run at 80. It could, the plant's going to go off in the summer anyway. And the last thing to mention here is switches. So when I mentioned about pump failure, if we monitor flow and there's no flow across the pump and we change over to the standby pump, it will fail the duty pump because it hasn't got any flow. So there's a problem with the pump. It will put that pump into an alarm, and you'll see the alarm flash up here. And once you've reset the pump or you've rectified the problem with the pump, you're going to need to reset that pump using the plant reset switch here. You just turn that from off to on. It will come on momentarily and then it will go off and it will reset the plant. It will switch back to the original pump. Okay, and then there's some settings in here to change over the boilers, and there's override buttons if you always want to run the boilers, but you can also use the hand position on the boiler switch as well. One last thing to mention on the switches is there's 3 position switches on all the plant. The hand position will run the plant continuously, but respecting the safety circuits we spoke about earlier. The off position is off, obviously, and the auto position is respecting the safety circuits, but also coming on under time switch control, which I just went through. So that's how the operation of the switches are designed to work.